What's the worst Christmas bonus you've ever received? I worked in a supermarket, and one year part of the Christmas celebrations was that the week before Christmas, the staff cafeteria hosted Christmas dinner for the employees, with the management team serving. It was a free three-course meal with wine, cheap, but a decent gesture meant in good humor. The supermarket was large, so there were a lot of staff. This meant the dinner had to have 3 sittings to ensure that A, everyone who wanted to attend could, and B, enough staff remained to run the shop floor. I was working a 10-hour shift that day, closing my department, so I opted for the 3rd sitting. My friend Dan was on his day off but planned to come in for lunch just to hang out and get free food, which we had been told was totally fine. By the end of the 2nd sitting, the management team decided they had had enough. They didn't host the 3rd sitting and, in fact, closed the cafeteria to eat Christmas dinner by themselves. Dan and I were effectively told at the door that we weren't invited, and no one else was allowed in except to get water or use the vending machine. Dan drove to work on his day off only to be told to leave. I worked until 8 p.m. without eating since 8 a.m. that morning. I never received so much as acknowledgement that the event had happened, let alone an apology, or even a handful of chocolates from the half-dozen boxes left around the tables. My Christmas bonus was watching my boss and his friends eat a free Christmas dinner with wine on the company's dime, while I had to buy a day-old sandwich on the way out and endure stink-eye from the cashiers for making them stay an extra 2 minutes. Merry friggin' Christmas, Tesco. Story 2. One year, I was given a corporate card and told to run to Starbucks to pick up $20 gift cards for everyone on the team. I was told get 18 in total, no more than 18. I bought 18 and thought it was great since I'd never received anything from work for Christmas before. I knew it wasn't much, but it was something. I put them on my boss's desk and he said thanks. That was it. About 2 hours later, he called me in and asked why I bought 18. I showed him the Post-it note he had given me and he said, "Oh, we only need 17, so I'm going to need you to reimburse me for the last one." He was serious. He made me go to an ATM and get him $20. Afterwards, he passed the gift cards out, and it turned out he didn't actually need 18. He needed 19. He then said that since they were one short, and it was my job to get them, I didn't get one. He added that he had already spent the $20, so he'd have to pay me back later. He never did. So, 1 year, my Christmas bonus ended up being negative $20. Story 3. I received a letter from corporate saying they had made a donation in my name to a charity, specifically to themselves, since I work for a nonprofit. Story 4. $0. I was working at a startup as the sole technical writer. My son was born in late November, and we had been asked to move out of our rental home by our landlords who needed to sell it. I missed a few days handling things with my wife unable to help with the packing. By mid-December, things had settled down, and I made up the time finishing all of my projects for the year. In my year-end review, my manager said he was embarrassed because he hadn't included me in the bonus pool. The bonuses had been decided at the beginning of December, and he assumed I wouldn't get the work done. He apologized, said my work was excellent, and promised recognition in the future. I never received it. The company was bought out the following summer. A bonus would have been very helpful, given the baby and moving costs. Story 5. The company promised our Christmas bonus until 2 days before Christmas, after skipping promised pay raises for everyone except top management that year. On Christmas payday, they sent an email announcing that due to financial difficulties, nobody would be getting a bonus. But we all had a bottle of wine waiting for us in reception on the way out. When we returned after New Year's, they unveiled a new staff bar built on site. It required pass card access and was meant for entertaining media and investors. Our Christmas bonus turned out to be a staff bar we were not allowed to use. Story 6. Nothing. At the time, I was working 2 jobs doing commercial cleaning. One of my employers was an optometrist. In the 5 years I worked for her, she never gave me a raise or a Christmas bonus. She was generous in giving me more work, though. I stayed because I needed the money. In my 5th year, I came into some money and was able to spring a surprise resignation on her. At my other cleaning job, I worked for a church 2 days a week and was paid $37.50 each week. I did the math and realized I was making only $4.50 per hour. My sister said they were lowballing me and that I should be paid at least minimum wage, which at the time was $8.50 per hour. When they hired me, they said it wasn't in their budget to pay me more. The church building was always a huge mess, glitter everywhere, and the diaper hamper in the nursery was usually full and smelled so bad it made me want to puke. I later discovered solid evidence that someone had been coming in before I arrived and sabotaging it. Serving my resignations at both jobs was two of the best days of my life. Story 7. I worked at a company where the owner walked around during the Christmas party handing out paychecks in fancy envelopes. It was meant to give clients the impression that employees were receiving bonuses. Story 8. Not a bad bonus itself, but management's reaction to how we used our bonuses was disgraceful. Years ago, I worked as a paramedic in the ER. During the first few years, we'd get a pretty good bonus, $200 to $500 depending on position. Then the hospital was sold. The new owners cut bonuses and gave each employee a gift certificate for a free turkey from a local grocery chain, worth about $15 at the time. Most of the staff, myself included, felt a bit disappointed, but stayed polite. Since not many of us cooked turkey for Christmas dinner, we donated our gift certificates to a couple of homeless shelters in town. Management found out and sent an email to all employees stating that since we didn't appreciate the thoughtful gift provided by the hospital, there would be no Christmas bonuses going forward. We tried to pay it forward and got slapped in the face for it. Story 9. I'd say nothing. I worked for a smaller business that did profit sharing, had a banner year, and gave out a minimum of $500 gift cards to even new employees. I was skipped. I was told it was an accident and someone had miscounted. I had been there 3 years at that point and put in some ridiculous hours, especially after going salaried. I wasn't depending on the bonus, but it was a real kick in the teeth. It made me feel undervalued, and I started thinking about leaving because they never made it right, and I was one of 3 people excluded. When I put in my notice, my boss said, "This is about the Christmas bonus, isn't it? If it was that important to you, you should have spoken up." I did. I expressed my disappointment. He said, "I just thought you were venting. I didn't think you'd actually leave over this. I can't express how disappointed I am that you would leave us right now over some gift cards at Christmas." He never got the point. Story 10. A Butterball Turkey branded check for a $10 turkey at the grocery store. Not a gift certificate, a real check with routing numbers and everything. I still don't know how it worked or why. I worked at a hotel and everyone was handed a legitimate check from Butterball for $10 along with their paycheck. I took it to the grocery store and they were so confused they just gave me a frozen turkey. One of the bellmen said he cashed his for $10, and it worked. I'm still baffled by the Butterball turkey check. Story 11. My employer sent an email phishing test to see if people would fall for a fake email. The email looked like it was from a gift card URL with a Starbucks logo and our company logo and claimed I was getting a Starbucks gift card for the Christmas holiday. When I clicked on it, it basically said, "Gotcha. If that had been a real phishing email, you would have been scammed." So, for Christmas, they decided to kick everyone in the nuts. Story 12. I worked for a company that gave us $5 per year of service and a free turkey or ham from the local grocery store. The ham was canned, and the turkey was about the size of a chicken. In my 3rd year, they discontinued the turkey and ham. After taxes, I received a check for $11. Later that year, I started a new job. At Christmas, my boss pulled me aside, told me bonuses were coming, and warned me not to be discouraged because mine would be prorated since I had started mid-year. On bonus day, he pulled me into his office, apologized for the size of the bonus, and handed me a check for $8,000. I laughed my ass off. He asked why I was laughing. Fortunately, I still had my uncashed bonus from the previous year in my wallet. I handed him the $11 check and explained what it was. "I guess you're okay with the prorated bonus then," he replied. Story 13. I was a few months into a new company that had both full-time and contracted workers. Contract employees would typically be on 3-month contracts before converting to full-time, and I was projected to move to full-time in the new year. Before the holidays, they gathered everyone for a meeting, gave updates, and said they had a special announcement. The CEO then said that everyone on the call was getting a $1,200 bonus. After the meeting, they messaged us to clarify that non-full-time employees weren't included. They had simply forgotten to remove us from the meeting. So my worst bonus was one I briefly had, and then didn't. Story 14. The day before Christmas, when we were supposed to receive our promised bonuses, the company canceled them along with the raises we were all promised, and then cut our hours. All so the directors and owners could go on a company retreat. A month later, when the company closed its doors due to having no employees, they sent out letters expressing disappointment with our work ethic for quitting. One of the directors got a job at a bank and was fired a week later for unprofessional behavior. I was the one who fired him. That's what you get for biting a female colleague's chesticles, John. Story 15. A past employer had done away with holiday bonuses, parties, and anything like that. Then they announced they were getting us lunch for the holidays. They gave each of us a boxed lunch with a sandwich, fruit, and chips, which was nicer than anything they had done since our small private company was bought by the unethical, shareholder-hungry corporation Fidelity. Then the rep from our vending machine company, Sodexo, mentioned that no one had said thank you for the Christmas lunches. Gifted by Sodexo, not Fidelity. The company had even gotten in trouble for writing off employees' charitable donations, so this was exactly the kind of unethical, shareholder-enriching plot they hatched at every opportunity. Story 16. I worked for this company for 7 years. Keep in mind, there were only 10 of us in Australia. There were never bonuses, so I'll tell you about the Christmas parties. First Christmas party. The GM flew over from England, booked a restaurant, bought boxes of booze, and hyped it as the party of the year. He then took the head of sales, the head of tech, and the delivery manager out to dinner and later to his hotel room for a night of heavy drinking, drugs, and hookers. The other 6 of us asked for the restaurant address before they left and were told we could go out to a bar for drinks or dinner on our own dime. Second Christmas party. We had a new GM based in Australia. His idea of a Christmas party was to order a grilled cheese sandwich and a soft drink for the office and leave them in the boardroom while he went sailing. There were 8 staff at that time, and only 3 soft drinks and 5 sandwiches were ordered. We didn't even know the food had arrived until the next day, when one of the sales staff discovered it while having a meeting with clients. Third Christmas party. Same GM told us he was giving us the day off. We thought he meant the following day, but he told us this at 3:45 p.m. He meant the rest of that day. 4th, 5th, and 6th Christmas parties. Nothing happened, not a thing, not even a secret Santa. 7th Christmas party. We all received $100 gift cards for a stationery store, which was part owned by the GM's wife. That same day, the GM announced that corporate was shutting down operations in our region and that we were all being let go, effective immediately. This was on the 23rd of December. Story 17. I worked for a startup consultancy in the early .com days. There were 3 hotshot bosses, co-founders, not much older than me, and I was new to the industry. We were doing so well that Microsoft called and asked if I could work on a special project, but I would have to go to Redmond for 3 months. I had just had my first child, and it was the end of the year. I got home the day before Christmas, and my boss pulled me aside and handed me a $2,000 bonus. I noticed all 3 of them had bought new cars for Christmas, an M5, a Porsche 911, and a 740 IL. I wasn't thrilled with the $2,000 bonus, but I was making about $90,000 a year and expected a bit more for how well things had gone. A day later, Microsoft sent over the final project details, including the signed project and payment information, and for some reason, CC'd me along with their accounting department. It turned out they had paid the company I worked for $500,000 for my 3 months of effort, which funded their new cars and more. And all I got was a $2,000 bonus. I'm all for businesses making a profit, but this project was entirely mine. Nobody else was involved, and all they could give me was $2,000. I had been working 12 to 13-hour days on a $90,000 salary, missed my newborn who was only 3 months old, and left my wife to handle everything at home. I quit the same day. Story 18. I got a $100 bonus, which, after taxes, came out to $67. The next day, HR sent out an email asking everyone who received a bonus if each person would pitch in $25 to $50 toward a Bass Pro Shop gift card for the boss because of all he does for us. They asked all 55 employees this. This was the same boss who, the year before, gave the server at the Christmas dinner $1,200 in tips for sitting on his lap like he was Santa, and then proceeded to tell 12 people they were fired, wondering why they didn't show up to work on the 27th. Screw you, Ryan. Story 19. The saddest Christmas meal I've ever had. I used to work for an airline and had to work on Christmas most years. Usually the managers provided a decent meal, either catered from somewhere like Famous Dave's or bringing in a ham with all the fixings. The last Christmas before I left the company, the manager decided airplane food would suffice. They brought in individual meals from the airline catering company, each consisting of a few shreds of some unknown gray meat, A small lump of mashed potatoes and half the plate filled with bland steamed vegetables that absolutely stank. One coworker sniffed it and said, "Only seafood should smell like seafood."
Oh, so the square thing means
Story
item
20.
211. Okay.
They replaced my year-end bonus
So
with a
it
point
must-
system
must
for
be in here,
rewards.
right?
Instead of my usual $5,000 bonus, I got 5,000 points, which were only worth a $50 gift card. Meanwhile, management kept their year-end bonuses instead of the point system and proudly announced at our company town hall that their bonuses had doubled to triple. I handed in my 2 weeks' notice a week later. Story 21. Not me, but in the late 1990s, my mom was a nurse's aide at a very large hospital, about 5,000 employees at the time. The hospital usually gave everyone monetary end-of-year bonuses, as well as vouchers in their paycheck envelopes for a free turkey and a free ham at the local grocery store chain. One year, however, without any announcement, the hospital gave no bonuses and no turkey or ham vouchers. There was a voucher, though, to pick up a free hardcover, gold-leafed book covering the entire history of the hospital. Thousands of these were printed, and by the following spring, waiting rooms and lobbies throughout the hospital and its clinics were overflowing with the books. Pages were ripped out, and kids had colored in them. Several physicians, surgeons, and RNs quit over the lack of bonuses, since that had been part of their employment contract. It was a complete mess. Story 22. I worked for an online electronics retailer during the later part of the dot-com bubble bust and post-9/11 recession. The company had laid off about half the staff right before Thanksgiving, just as we were heading into the busy holiday season. Those of us who remained had to do double work over the holidays. Right after New Year's, we had a small, somewhat somber holiday gathering in the office, given that half the company had been let go just 2 months earlier. To thank us for our hard work during a difficult time, they gave each of us Rio MP3 players, the original ones that held less than a single album's worth of music. At that point, the newest models held around 100 songs. Right after announcing the gifts, the CEO complimented the portable electronics buyer for getting a shipping container of these overstocked devices for 5 cents a piece to sell on our site. We ended up selling them for $20 each. Too late, he realized he had just shown us how little our efforts were valued, and you could see on his face that he knew he'd messed up. Story 23. Not me, but my dad. His company had a banner year, and he was responsible for much of the success. All year, his boss had talked about generous Christmas bonuses. Dad was counting on that bonus to buy Christmas presents. He was disappointed when he didn't receive anything on his last payday before the holiday break. But his boss told him he would come by our house on Christmas Eve because he had something special to drop off. We were all excited, waiting for him. Around 8 p.m., he arrived in a very expensive car, wearing clothes that even I knew cost a small fortune. He was holding a small floral arrangement with a deer figurine. Dad invited him in. He wished my mom a Merry Christmas and handed her the arrangement. Then he said he had other people to visit. He did not hand my dad an envelope. He did not say a word about a bonus. He just left. I could tell my parents were stunned and then angry. Mom even mentioned where she might shove that reindeer. She didn't usually talk like that. Within 6 months, Dad gave his notice. Eventually, karma caught up with the boss.
All right, guys. So
Story 24. This wasn't a
requires
Christmas
1x of each
bonus,
thing.
but it was awful.
This whole
I
time
used
I
to
thought I
work at
could
Radio
fill all
Shack
the
before it went
items.
defunct. The job was fine. I got to meet cool nerds and
So
teach
actually, I can
electronics
craft
to
a lot of
kids.
things.
Overall, pretty good stuff.
I'm sorry.
Then
I'm
Radio
sorry, I'm a
Shack
little
decided the
slow.
best way
Sometimes
to
it
earn
takes a while to
billions
understand what
was
the
to get
whole
into the
thing is. I
phone
think we
business,
really
which,
have to figure out.
unsurprisingly, was a bad move. Our district
That's true,
manager,
it isn't.
DM, was on a call
This
with the
device is
regional
designed for
and
release
state-level
across smoke, but
management
it's good
teams,
visibility.
and they
There's
decided to host a
modified proximity
statewide
device that can be placed
competition.
as a trap that will trigger
Whichever
anything
DM
from
got the
here.
highest phone sales during the release of the Samsung Galaxy
This is
5
true.
would
You're
receive
right.
a really
So I
nice
think
year-end
actually,
bonus.
I think maybe
Of
a
course,
smoke
our
bomb
DM
sounds
wanted
awesome.
that badly.
For
He
me,
gathered
the
all his
smoke
teams
bomb
for a
seems like
call
the
and
best
told
thing,
us we
because,
had to
like,
win, emphasizing that the store with the
make a smoke
highest
bomb,
sales
shall
would earn a special reward. My manager was psyched, and we were all pumped. We made a game plan, and we killed it. Our store ended up with the best sales in the state by a small margin. I remember the day our DM called us to congratulate us. He told us, "All hands on deck for Friday, we've got a big surprise." We were all excited and spent the week speculating. Maybe a Raise?
And
A
this is
fancy dinner?
because
Gift
now
cards?
I've
Something
used
nice.
Some of my resources,
Friday
so
arrived, and our DM showed up early in the morning while the morning shift prepared to open.
cool. I finally,
3
I
of us,
finally figured
me
it out.
included.
Nice.
He asked us to
Silly. I
chip
was
in for
thinking
some
of the
pizza
picnic,
for
I
the
guess.
day. None of us had any issue with that. We usually did that for lunch anyway. I think we each contributed about $20. The DM said, "Okay, I gotta run some
I don't think
errands,
this
get some
gun is gonna
gas,
do
then
anything to
I'll
the
come
alien,
back
but-
with the pizza." We all went back
I
to
don't think
work.
the alien's gonna
The day
show
continued,
itself in
and the
clear
rest
view
of the
for me to
staff,
shoot at.
either working the night shift or off that
That's
day,
my
showed up
honest,
for the
opinion.
special surprise.
I think it's
Around
gonna
1
kill me.
p.m., the DM returned with 3
Suddenly.
boxes of Little Caesars pizza, 1 bag of breadsticks,
expected.
1 container of
That's
marinara
usually what
sauce,
I'm kind
and a
of
2-liter bottle of
preparing
Pepsi.
for. I
We
can't
all
prepare
funneled
for it,
into
you
the
know?
back and ate our mediocre pizza while chatting and having a decent time. After
So
about
now
20
I can get
minutes,
more
our
scraps
manager asked,
since
"All
I-
right, DM, we're all dying to
Awesome.
know. What's
we
the
go.
surprise?"
Perfect.
The DM gave a confused look and said, "The pizza is the surprise. I've never seen a room fall so silent so fast." Our manager looked utterly shocked and said,
Flare.
"Wait, a pizza party? That's the surprise?
So the
And didn't
item
you
is
borrow money
not
from
in
us to
here,
pay for
huh?
this?" The DM got flustered and
Well, I
started
don't know.
accusing
That's
us
what we
of
haven't
being
looked
ungrateful,
over.
when one of the staff said,
Looking for a
"I
different
get
cell.
pizza from
Ooh,
Little Caesars all the
bag.
time. There's no way you spent
I would love to
$60 on
save
just
the
this. Where's the rest of the money?" The DM and manager went to the office and were shouting at each other for about an hour while the rest of us sat there, stunned. Our theory? He used the money to fill up his SUV and bought the pizza
Okay,
with
so how do
whatever
I get
was
in this
left.
store? I can't.
Story 25. I normally received pretty decent bonuses in cash as part of a tradition in
I
New
really don't
Zealand,
wanna-
where offices shut down over the summer Christmas break. Early in my career,
I don't know.
I had a
Should I
job
crouch?
interview at a large corporate
Do I need to
company.
crouch all
The
time?
interview was going well until the end when I asked about salary and perks
Playthrough
like
would be
private
30
medical
hours
care,
if I crouched
which is a
everywhere.
nice bonus at most jobs here. The interviewer told me the salary was set about $5,000
Are
less
we
than what I
good?
was
think
currently
we're
earning.
good. Oh, shit.
Seeing my reaction, he started talking about the perks, like a $50 allowance for the Christmas social event, or a discounted suit, or even a free corporate branded tie. To be fair, even the interviewer looked embarrassed
So,
while
actually,
listing
you know,
these
this gun doesn't
bonuses,
seem good. You know why?
especially
'Cause it
since the
makes noise,
CEO
right?
was making headlines
Do we really
for
want the
receiving
gun?
multi-million-dollar bonuses. I still remember having to pay $26 for
shouldn't even
parking
have
in
it
the corporate
equipped.
downtown building for that pointless
I
interview.
feel like.
Story 26. We got an email telling us that because
the
we were
wrench is
IT,
better,
we
'cause
wouldn't
it's
be
more
receiving a
stable,
holiday
so-
bonus anymore.
More
As it is a cost center and doesn't generate revenue, IT departments will no longer be
Oh, I
eligible
didn't see
for a
that.
holiday bonus.
Nice.
Never mind that this company did billions of
So someone
dollars a
killed
year
this
in
guy
business without any
with the
physical
bullets,
locations. Their entire operation was online. Yeah.
presumably.
2 weeks later, my IT manager came in, all excited about the new Tesla he had just bought. Oh, right. He wasn't actually IT. He was a manager of IT. So he's a manager, not
So this is
IT.
not
The collective morale of the IT teams dropped to near
Oh,
zero.
what is that?
5 years later, when I left,
Personal
IT
terminal.
still wasn't
Oh, did I
eligible for
not
holiday
access the personal
bonuses
terminal?
and had been uninvited from the holiday party. Not that
I
they
don't know if
cared.
those are bullet
They
holes.
just
They might
kept
have been
hiring
puncture
offshore
wounds from
IT
the alien
replacements
sale.
with zero skill. Yeah, screw that company.
Oh shit! What is
They're a
this?
mortgage company. Story 27. A company I worked for announced
what is
that
it?
due to problems with one of our shareholders, who owned the building we worked in, not only would we not get a bonus or have a Christmas party, but we were forbidden
it
from
lock-
putting
does
up
that
any
lock the door?
decorations or bringing in festive foods that we paid for ourselves. This
Maybe
was
it's a really
supposedly
good-
because the parent company was firing a lot of people over
lock the
Christmas,
door?
and it could be
Can I say
seen
that?
as
No.
insensitive
Good.
since the ex-employees would have to walk past our offices. The announcement was made to us before the employees being let go were even told. We were independent businesses that
this
just
terminal?
happened to share the same office
Low
block.
power.
Story 28. One year, I received a $10 gift certificate to a local cinema I had already sworn off after seeing a giant roach cruise across the screen during a movie. The funniest part? A single adult ticket at the theater was $13.50 at the time. I just sold the gift certificate to a coworker
Okay,
who didn't know or care
maybe I do have
how
to go to
gross
the
that
vent
place
then.
was for $5.
Because it doesn't seem like
A close second was last
What I
year
need is
when
a
we had a
battery.
company-wide town hall celebrating record-breaking sales and how terrific the year had been.
Let's continue.
My Christmas bonus? $100 before taxes. I'm not a low-level employee. I hold a fairly important
Oh, the
position and had
map.
been there
Oh
for
my
5
God.
years.
Okay, now I'm gonna save again.
Getting a pat on the back and $100
notice
was
the map.
honestly more offensive than simply
the map.
not giving a bonus
Oh,
at
shit.
all. Story 29. We didn't get bonuses or anything until one year someone from the office came around with a stack of envelopes and a big smile handing them out. I was working when they walked past, so I thanked them, slipped the envelope in my pocket, and kept working. A few minutes later, I heard someone yell my name. I looked around, but didn't see anyone. Then I heard it again and noticed a coworker. He asked how I liked the notice. I said I hadn't read it yet, so he hit the off switch on my machine and told me to read it. The first line said, "Merry Christmas. Effective immediately, we are discontinuing holiday pay." The day before Christmas, a bunch of people left early at lunch because they didn't care anymore. The no holiday pay policy lasted until Halloween of the next year and was only reinstated because they couldn't get anyone to work for them and thought it would be a nice perk to sweeten the deal. Story 30. My old company used to give gifts at Christmas, and they were usually pretty good. One particularly lucrative year, we got Ray-Bans, a Leatherman, and a belt with a cool, work-related buckle. The company bought in bulk and ended up giving the extras to clients. They were still giving stuff away almost a year later. One of my coworkers was out with a work injury, so I put aside a set of each for him. When he returned, we gave them to him. What I didn't know was that the owner hated him. A few weeks later, the owner saw the coworker walking around with the gifts and went ballistic, asking who had given them to him. The department head stepped in and said he had, and the owner gave him a huge dressing down. After that, we never got gifts again. Story 31. I worked as a cook in a nursing home kitchen, often working up to 80 hours a week. I would beg my boss for help through tears, trying to keep up while we were wildly understaffed. For Christmas, he gave me a miniature whisk keychain. I put in my notice shortly after. On my last day, he bought a sheet cake, intending for us to have a little goodbye party with the crew. I had ridden my bicycle to work, and you better believe I balanced the whole cake on my handlebars and rode my happy ass into the sunset. Story 32. My current company has 70,000 employees, most highly skilled with specialized licenses. Our CEO inherited the company from their father, who inherited it from his father. Since 2019, the CEO's net worth has increased by $12 billion. Theoretically, they could give every employee $375,000 before running out of money. Meanwhile, 50% or more of our income goes to rent for most of us. This year, our bonus was a blanket, cheaper than the one my dog uses on the couch. So, now the dog has a new blanket too. Story 33. I worked for a car dealership owned by a billionaire who owns over 100 dealerships and 4 NASCAR teams. About a week before Christmas, they called us into the management tower and handed out envelopes. They were all smiles, and we thought we were getting Christmas bonuses. It was a Christmas card with a picture of him and his wife on his $27 million yacht. No money, no gift card, no nothing. Just a picture of a completely self-unaware rich prick smiling like a goon. Thanks a lot. The worst part? Some guys actually hung theirs up in their cubicles acting like he was their buddy or genuinely cared about them. Story 34. Our company announced this year that they would no longer be giving bonuses of any sort. Previously, all employees received the same Christmas bonus, from the janitor to the vice president. Last year, it was $800. Now, instead, we will be getting profit sharing in March or April. Profits will be determined after they pay an undetermined amount toward the purchase of the company. And, of course, they will decide how much of the profit to share. It will be in the form of shares, which we cannot cash in until we quit or retire. The owner retired and sold the company to the employees 2 years ago. The paying down of debt is supposed to make our share price rise. The fun part? This disproportionately favors upper management, who get a significantly larger proportion of shares based on their salary. Having seen this kind of thing before, I doubt our profit-sharing shares will come close to what our Christmas bonus used to be. The profits will likely be used to enhance the company's cash position, raising the perceived share price, while distributing as little as possible to the general employees. A company I previously worked for implemented profit sharing. The first year, we basically got an extra 25% of our pay, which was about $12,500 for me. The next year, management decided that all future profit-sharing disbursements would be capped at $2,000. Can't have that money going to the people who actually manufacture the products the company sells. Story 35. I worked on Christmas Day at a fancy hotel because I knew the tips would be incredible. And they were. We were getting hundreds of pounds per table. There were about 10
I
people
see.
per
There's
table
a-
and around
there's a-
10
there's
tables.
a-
We were busting our asses because not many staff
there's
agreed
a
to work,
thingy.
but we really
There's
put
a
in the
point of
effort
interest
once
right
we
here?
knew we'd walk
Okay.
away with a couple £100 each, if
Somewhere?
not more. The guests were
it.
very sympathetic and kept
Oh, shit.
thanking us for working on Christmas
go.
Day. Toward
Got
the
the
end of the
day
event, the
sell.
hotel owner came down and took all the cash.
And I
We
died,
assumed
right?
it would be split among us, but our manager told us the owner was taking it to fund the Christmas party, the one already booked and paid for that included about 80 other staff who didn't want to work on Christmas Day. Story 36. I worked this out for a friend recently when they told me
How the
their
hell did they
Christmas
get out?
bonus this year. The dividend raised this quarter
there
is
like
about
a
20
fence?
cents, but overall for the year it is roughly 80
Please tell me
cents.
there's an
If
event.
the company maintained the same dividend as last quarter and reinvested that money in the people who work there, they could all get a $1,000 raise, and they would still be up about 60 cents on last year's dividends.
Oh, okay.
But it gets
I see.
worse. They reported a profit of approximately $2,350 million this year. They could give everyone a $3,000 raise and still be in profit of $2,300 million. They could give everyone a $10,000 raise and still be in profit of $2,200 million. And that's for all employees worldwide. How much is enough for them? What are the employees actually getting for a Christmas bonus? A $50 gift card. Story 37. This was in 2005, my first year as an apprentice. In Germany, the cost of Social Security, social Abgaben like healthcare and unemployment insurance, is usually split 50-50 between employer and employee. My paycheck was so low that my employer covered the full amount. When I received my Christmas bonus, Weihnachtsgeld, my salary went over the limit, which meant I had to pay half of the Social Security. In the end, I received less than my usual salary. My employer probably saved some money because he only paid half of my Social Security. The best or worst part? I got my salary statement on the day of the Christmas party. I wasn't in the best story, 38. I once worked for a terrible company. Around December 21st, just before Christmas, I ended up in the hospital with shards of metal embedded in my cornea. I was wearing safety glasses and was on camera wearing them during the incident. On December 24th, the company owner called me to ream me out. 10 minutes of berating with zero sympathy for my loss of vision. When he finished, I let him have it back. I tend to be wordy and funny when pushed, and it often leaves people startled. He then tried to explain that I was screwed and would never work in the industry again. At first I thought he was joking because he was laughing. Nope. When the workers' compensation officer called me, he said, "This guy
That's
seems
not
like a
good.
real
That's terrible.
a-hole.
So
Tell me
someone-
what happened."
so, yeah,
I
clearly
explained
they're
the
covering it
truth,
up,
and he replied,
somehow
"I tell you what,
the
this guy
alien
threw
got
you
on
under
the
the
ship."
bus, sent in a video showing you were diligent. He's trying to screw you over. I hate that. It happened to me. Screw him. Your claim is
Ooh,
approved."
flashlight batteries.
Fast forward. After they removed the shards of metal from my cornea, I had been off work for 4 days because I couldn't see. I got my Christmas bonus in an envelope. I figured it would be something reasonable. Nope. It was a lollipop with a note saying, "Thanks for your service." The following 2 months, I was sent to the farthest possible job sites from where I lived. My punishment, I suppose. In mid-February, I was fired for the first time in my life. I was told, "It's politics." Here's the redemption part. I moved to a different company. There, we ended up taking over the projects from my old employer. The jerk had the audacity to call and ask if I had kiboshed his project, which was worth just under $1 million. I told him no. He then asked if I could come fix it for him with a potential large bonus. I said nope, and continued running his contracts at my new company. They are still in business, but with a quarter of their staff. My new company takes care of its people, and the people take care of one another. I'm now a happy employee. As Eazy-E said, that's how it is, and that's how it goes. Story 39. Not me, but my staff received $25 extra in their checks. Taxes not figured in, delivered on January 3rd. I had staff in Nashville and Detroit at the time. I got on a plane in Detroit at 8:30 a.m. and landed in Nashville to find a bunch of pissed-off salespeople quitting one by one with no explanation. At our Nashville shop, the shipping staff asked what had happened. Once their checks hit, the entire shipping team walked out. One sales guy explained why. I called our new president, who I could hear shrugging on the phone, and then HR, who happened to be the founder's sister-in-law. She had no idea because the new president had taken payroll as practically his only duty. The founder blew his top and started sending out $500 from his own PayPal account, instructing us to get cash and hand it out to those affected. I closed the Nashville store after emptying out all the cash and told everyone to enjoy the day. The new president was gone within a few months due to a mutiny from the entire leadership team.
Oh, where does this go?
Story 40. I got a 1-year subscription to a music service. Pandora, I think. The company knew I'm deaf.
Have we been in here?
When I mentioned I planned to re-gift it, my boss said he was sorry I didn't appreciate the gift. I reminded him, "You know I'm deaf, right?" He paused, confused, then slowly shook his head. "Yes, I do know you're deaf." I explained it was useless to me and I'd rather gift it to someone else. He said, as if defending himself, "Well, they didn't feel it was fair to get you something different than the others." I nodded and said, "Okay, you asked." And I said, "I'm giving it away." 2 days later, I got a $5 gift card to Subway and was told not to let anyone else know. What they didn't realize was that my coworkers had already pitched in to get me a subscription to my favorite comic book. They all thought it was a ridiculous gift, and nobody would have minded if I got something else since the music subscription was useless to me. I laugh about it now, but there were many stupid things like that when I worked there. Story 41. Back in 2003, I worked in the detailing shop at a Ford dealership in a decent-sized town in the Pacific Northwest. That year, the dealership had its best sales ever. They made a lot of money, and the owner pocketed about $7 million in net profit that year alone. His total net worth was around $60 million, making him one of the wealthiest people in town, but also one of the cheapest and biggest a-holes you could meet. That Christmas, every employee was promised a very generous bonus. I expected cash, maybe a couple $100. Instead, the bonus was a ham. Not even a full ham, just half a ham, valued at around $17. Everyone was so angry that they took their very generous bonuses and dumped them in the bed of the owner's pickup truck. About 80 half hams in total. It seems he got the message because a few days later, he personally went to each employee and handed out $150 in cash. Much better than a half ham. Story 42. I worked for a privately owned food processing company in Indiana, and one Christmas they decided not to give a bonus. Instead, everyone received boxes for custom die-cast trucks painted with the company's livery. Very nice replicas. Except they had removed all the trucks from the boxes. Everyone just got the empty boxes. The owner thought the boxes looked nice and would make a good gift. I remember vividly. One employee was so mad he took a box over to HR, set it on the ground, and proceeded to jump smash it like a wrestler in front of the entire department. He walked out like a movie explosion had gone off behind him, cool as a cucumber. I left that company soon after. What a joke. Story 43. Not me, but my wife's colleagues. One year, they were promised a 350-pound Christmas bonus. Sounds great, right? Well, the company added the bonus onto employees' wages at the same time they closed for 2 to 3 weeks over Christmas. Employees received 2 to 3 weeks' pay in one lump sum, plus the 350-pound bonus, all at once. The taxman took most of what they earned that week. Anyone claiming child tax benefits also got severely affected over the holidays. Many employees begged the company not to give them the bonus to avoid the tax complications, but the company refused and gave it out anyway. In the end, most employees only received about 2/3 of their standard wages over the Christmas closure due to the abnormal surge in taxable income. The company refuses to change the way wages are handled over the holidays. Story 44. Not really a Christmas bonus, but my company in San Diego held a white elephant exchange every year. Though it was called White Elephant, it was basically a gift swap where you could steal from someone else. I always brought booze, but disguised it, putting rocks or other items inside to make it feel sloshy. The last year I was there, only 3 people brought booze, myself and 2 other warehouse guys. My boss, who claimed he hardly ever drank, stole the bottle I had gotten from stealing from a buddy. This was the second time it was stolen, so no one else could steal it back. He sat there smug while I opened a bag containing a throw blanket. His wife suggested he trade me the booze for the blanket, but he refused. In previous years, he'd pretend to go for the booze, but end up picking something for his kids or wife. I guess he didn't like me requesting a couple of days off while my wife was recovering from giving birth to our daughter earlier that year. As someone making $14 an hour in 2017, living in San Diego with a newborn, it was a nice kick in the teeth right before Christmas weekend. Story
The
45.
game is hiding
0.
for me.
I worked for a
game.
husband and wife
Thank you,
team who were
game.
always poor
Oh my
mouthing.
God,
I was pulling
dude.
60-plus hour weeks, sometimes
hiding
80
for
plus,
me.
and even 100-hour
I appreciate
weeks
that game.
for them, but they couldn't even manage
I
a
appreciate
Christmas
that game.
bonus. Lesson. Never work for a
That's not- that
husband
looks
and
really
wife
good.
startup.
That's
They're
really
usually
good, Nick.
undercapitalized, and if you have a problem with one,
you,
you have a
game.
problem with both.
I was
I
worried
can't
I would have
believe
to
I
do
let
that
myself be
myself.
exploited by them for 3 years. Later, at a different company, an ad agency.
God.
Our biggest client was a
You know, that
400-store
wasn't-
grocery
guys, that
chain.
wasn't so bad.
I spent days
You know
during the
why?
summer
Because I
designing
didn't have to
ideas
do
for their
anything.
employee Christmas gift. The budget, 25 cents per item. We finally settled on a token that said, Merry Christmas. I wanted to
This whole
put
time I
clock
was
out
worried
before
about
you
the
read
alien,
this on the
and I
other
guess I
side,
didn't have
the
to worry
cheapness of the
until
gift
now.
being so offensive. The executive team flew out of one airport
now
after
what?
hitting a bunch of stores with these
know what?
tokens. The
Let's
corporate
follow him.
CEO insisted over the
No,
pilot's
oh,
objection
okay.
that they
Let's
take
plan
off
our
in
route.
heavy
Let's
fog.
plan our route
Do
out
it,
here.
or
So-
I'll find another pilot, he said.
So that
They
guy
took
went
off
that way.
and crashed into the side of
So
a
maybe if
mountain,
we go-
scattering those 25-cent tokens all over the mountainside.
Music. So maybe if
Story
we go this
46.
way, we'll be okay.
From the management side, keep this in mind.
Not the
I don't get
music.
overtime during the year, so I rely on an end-of-year
now we got
bonus,
the
usually
alien.
$3,000 to $5,000, which comes to about $2,000 to
God.
$3,000 after
Thank God
taxes.
that-
The company doesn't
I'm
do
already
anything
heightened
for
so
hourly
bad. That was
staff.
good effort, but
I
yeah,
take
I'm already-
$1,000 and buy
already
lunch
here.
and $25 gift cards for my 25 to 30 employees. I don't expect anything in return except a quick thank you. It's disheartening when employees complain that I
Jesus.
didn't do enough, as if there's unlimited cash in my bank. So, if corporate does something disappointing, be vocal.
making
If your local
noises?
manager does something disappointing, understand they're probably doing the best they can.
How about I head over
Story 47. Not me, but my dad. He
Why
works
is
at a
there
popular
camera
online
looking at me?
marketplace in one
That's
of their
creepy.
shipping
That's
warehouses.
creepy.
Their Christmas or peak period bonuses have always been underwhelming, and I'm sure they're getting worse each year. Last year, everyone received a small bag of popcorn, a hot chocolate stirrer, the ones with a large slab of chocolate at the end that you can just stir into hot milk, and a gift card for a food delivery service. Many of the codes on these cards had already been used, making one gift completely useless for a
just got
large
jump
portion
scared
of
by
the
my
staff.
refrigerator making
This
noise.
year, they're getting nothing at all. Interestingly, we
Alright,
talked about this over dinner yesterday,
so we
and I'm going to
gotta
help him do a small
hack the
gesture for
elevator.
his team. He's a supervisor
What?
by making cookies
we-
for everyone.
Oh, I see.
While
We
it's
gotta go
not
to
from the
floor-
company and not a big bonus,
What floor
I
is this?
hope it will be an appreciated token of thanks. Story 48.
doesn't tell
I
me
worked
what
for
floor
one of
this
3
is.
casinos in my
lower
area.
level. Okay,
The
so
last
lower
Christmas I
level, we
worked
gotta go to
there,
upper
the gift
level.
was a $25 gift certificate to the local honey-baked ham. There was no alternative for vegetarians,
is this the
Jewish, Muslim, or other dietary restrictions.
go through
Just
the-
that, and no cash option. The cheapest sandwich meal was
Now I
about
don't wanna go through
$15,
the
so we
vents.
couldn't even get 2 meals. The cheapest half ham was $50. And pies were all $15 or
wanna go
more.
through the vents.
So, 1 meal and a second would have cost us out of pocket. Instead, almost everyone gave their gift card to a table games
Welcome
manager
alarm beep.
who donated them to the local community homeless kitchen.
All right, so
While
up
it was
the
nice
stairs,
to
up
make
the
them
stairs.
useful
Ready?
through donation, I
This
would
is
have
why.
preferred nothing at all. The other casinos, by contrast, gave leather jackets
Jesus Christ,
and very
was that
nice
an
gym
alien
bags
noise?
to every employee.
Was that
Story
alien
49.
noise?
My company at the time was a venture-backed tech startup doing medical delivery by drones in Rwanda and Ghana. We were really taking off, pun intended. That year, we worked incredibly hard, and I personally spent about 60 to 70% of my time
okay.
working in tough conditions abroad to help make it happen. The company announced a special Christmas gift for us. We had never received a bonus before,
let's go.
and everyone was excited to find
So,
out what it would
first
be.
step,
At the Monday all-hands meeting,
stairs,
they
up the
revealed it.
stairs, up the
A
stairs,
hoodie
up the
for
stairs.
each person with Kitenge accents around the collar,
I'm tense.
wrists, and pocket.
I'm tense, but I'm trying to be
Kitenge
less
is a type
tense
of
here.
colorful,
I'm trying to be-
iconic African
Oh, shit, we
fabric,
didn't get this map.
but they
This
didn't
is
even
map,
have them
right?
ready,
Hell yeah.
as they were being made in
We
Ghana.
got the map.
We finally received them in July or August. The quality was terrible. Neck holes too small, stitching coming apart,
we need to
and the
go
front
up,
pocket
yeah?
too
Up.
small to fit your hands. It's not all about money, but by this point, the company had a $1.2 billion valuation and had raised multiple funding rounds, and the Africa operation was independently profitable.
I need to equip
That was my
actually?
worst bonus
Forget the-
experience, until later that year, when we got an ice cream cake to celebrate passing a $2 billion valuation. But
Forget
that wasn't
the,
a Christmas bonus, so
Forget
less
the gun.
relevant.
The gun's not gonna do
Thanks for
anything.
coming to
I
my
think
TED Talk.
Maybe the smoke bomb.
Story 50.
I actually.
I worked
don't
at a
know.
small company where the owner constantly wore a Rolex,
Oh my God,
had new
this is
trucks,
too much.
and even a private plane. He was very
Here, let me
wealthy.
hide.
It was a
Let me
tiny
hide.
operation,
Let me
just
hide.
me and one other
Let's take a
mechanic,
look at the map.
but the company was
So
pulling
when
in
you're on the
over
radio
$1 million
wheel, I
a
noticed
year
that the
in
movement
pure
on the
profit.
outside is still
For
going.
Christmas,
So
the
I think when
bonus
you're
was a
radio wheel,
very
you
small turkey.
actually
I just told him thanks and
time
suggested
doesn't
he
stop.
donate it to a homeless shelter. I walked out soon
Time stops
after.
when you do
He
the
kept
map, though,
insisting
so
I
it's-
couldn't
it's-
leave, but I just got in my car and drove off. He's no longer in business. Story 51. This year,
Honestly,
nothing
the
at all.
noise she makes
After 8
opening
years
the-
of employment and receiving a
locker
bonus
is
every
so
year, I got absolutely nothing. Not even a Christmas card thanking me for my hard work. The company owner had to retire in April due to health reasons, and her son took over. He's systematically running the company into the ground. Cost-cutting measures are now in effect in a hopeless attempt to right the ship. All I want for Christmas is a decent new job somewhere not too far away, because I can't be much farther from my mother given her health concerns. Story 52. I used to work for a small nonprofit. I submitted my resignation in early December, planning to leave. At the end of the year, I was leaving on good terms and wanted to give ample time to find my replacement. One board member suggested I not receive a Christmas bonus since I was leaving, and convinced a few others. I gathered he was upset I was leaving and saw this as a chance to show it. Thanks to Richard, who had experience in both this and other industries, it was argued that bonuses are based on the previous year's performance, not the upcoming one. In the end, I did receive a bonus, but it was significantly smaller than others, despite being the top performer that year. I had been counting on it to help start my own company and purchase necessary equipment, and it definitely made getting started more difficult. Story 53. We worked a long, hot, and stinky summer. Our site was next to a pet food factory, and it was also slurry season when animal waste is spread on the fields. We got seasonal layoffs at the end of the year, and about 3 weeks before Christmas, I received mail from my employer in a company logoed envelope. Inside was a short message that basically said, "One of the locals sent this to us," along with a photocopy of a handwritten letter from a local praising us for being polite, courteous, and cheerful. We had finished the project a year ahead of schedule and millions of dollars under budget. Not a penny was given to the workers as a bonus. Thank you letters don't put presents under the tree. That letter was quickly crumpled and tossed in the trash. Story 54. I had a general manager show up to our department Christmas lunch, give a speech about how proud he was of our work, and say that instead of the usual cash bonus or time off, he thought we'd appreciate something handmade more. He gave us cell phone stands, blocks of wood with a notch cut out. They weren't sanded, and the notch was too small to fit a phone unless it was taken out of its case or angled awkwardly to see the screen. He also brought a 12-inch pizza to share among 25 people. The next day, most of the department lost their benefits because they had worked less than 30 hours that month, and the company had just changed the health insurance eligibility rules. This was at a hotel in the business district, where occupancy dropped in December. In previous years, housekeepers would do deep cleaning during the slow season, but the new GM, who had only been there a few months, didn't think it was necessary.
Let's go.
Story 55. When I was about 20, I worked at an auto parts store as a driver. Local repair shops would order parts and drivers would deliver them. One year, the drivers were handed an envelope containing a check for $20, with taxes deducted, leaving about $16.34. I asked what it was, and the manager said, "Christmas bonus." I replied, "Why bother?" He explained that with a few hundred drivers company-wide, it added up. I said, "Why not take all that money and donate it to a charity that can do some good, rather than giving each person a completely insignificant sum?" I didn't expect, deserve, or want a bonus, but giving pocket change to each person seemed like a colossal waste. Story 56. We got $90 that could only be spent on clothes with the company logo from the company catalog, which we weren't being paid to beta test. All the clothes were gray. We couldn't go over $90 and we couldn't keep the change. The cheapest item was a hat at $25, a shirt was around $30, and jackets were at least $45, some even $90. We used to get these items for free just for finishing the year, along with $25, which wasn't much, but now it feels like a complicated scam. This is a housing nonprofit where the executive director makes over $130,000, while people in my department can barely pay rent. But yay. Another gray shirt that looks exactly like the other three I already own. Story 57. I had a civil service job where we were told to attend a mandatory staff meeting at a local Italian restaurant on a Friday. It was a combined meeting and holiday party. We were instructed to bring a gift worth no more than $10 and pay $25 up front for the meal. Everyone was to bring their own vehicle, so we assumed we could just go home afterward since parking was free. The plan was to meet at 11, eat at noon, exchange gifts at 1, share some laughs, and be out by 3 at the latest. The meeting started and went around the circular table set up for 37 people, while waiters went around taking our lunch orders. We, the co-workers, noticed the most expensive item on the menu was $11.99. So I asked why we had to pay $25 up front. The waiter said it included a non-alcoholic drink, tip, and the room rental. There were 11 managers and 3 supervisors present, and each proceeded to outline the goals and objectives of the department, praising our work and reminding us how fortunate we were to have the meeting at this restaurant. They promised a special gift at the end. Each manager or supervisor repeated almost exactly what the previous one said. By 2:45, we were getting hungry. When the meeting finally ended, they told the waiter we were ready to eat. Food started arriving at 3:45, with the last dish arriving at 4:15. It turned out the lunch staff had gone home, and the dinner crew was just starting to arrive, hence the delay. We ate quickly. While some were finishing, we agreed to start the gift exchange, which didn't finish until 5:15. We usually end our shift at 4:30, but we were sticking around for the special gift. As we were leaving, the administrative assistant handed out our gifts at the door. A single cellophane-wrapped tea bag with a paper tag that said, "Thanks for all you do." I asked, "Is there supposed to be something else with this, like a coffee mug? It seems odd." Nope, that was it. We left, only to discover the final insult. The free parking had expired at 5, so we had to pay an additional $5 to get out of the garage. Story 58. In the Philippines, they give you a month's salary at the beginning of December to spend on Christmas. It's like a 13th month of pay. I was working in manufacturing one year and didn't get a bonus, but we had a nice holiday potluck with a big ham. It was really chill. The following year, the department that organized it moved into their own building. I got a new manager, and the party was gone. The manager didn't even wish us happy holidays, just nothing. It was sad. On another note, at a different company, everyone got a greeting card one year. Driving home, I opened mine and 10 $100 bills fell out. It was incredibly unexpected and almost brought me to tears. The following year, I expected it and was so stressed thinking about it that when we finally got it, I didn't even appreciate it. I felt like a jerk for that. Story 59. Nothing. At that company, Christmas bonuses weren't mandatory, and not everyone received one. Managers received a bonus based on the performance of their project or team that year, and certain financial metrics like contract value and how over or under budget they were. It was then up to each manager to distribute portions of their bonus to their team, and they were strongly encouraged to do so. This typically meant that the leads and rockstar engineers got something. This particular year, I was carrying a large part of a project as a lead, and my team had excelled on a different part. I had planned to give my entire bonus to my team because I didn't really need the money, and they truly earned it. When bonuses came around, I didn't receive anything, which was odd since I had received one every year prior. A few months later, I found out that no one under my manager got anything. She had kept it all to herself. Story 60. I worked for a hotel group in food and beverage, bar, restaurant, and conference portering, setting up business meeting rooms, so I was on site around the clock. When the hotel was bought, I even helped with renovations, so I was pretty invested in the job. A sister hotel in the group was marginally outperforming us, despite being around for about 15 years and running a lucrative Santa experience for kids, while we had only been open about 18 months. That didn't seem to matter. They got a €300 Christmas cash bonus for full-time staff and €150 for part-time. We received leftover blankets from the other hotel's Christmas experience, which had been used to keep children warm while waiting to meet Santa. The family who owned the hotel group was worth over €600 million and owned hotels from Ireland to Shanghai. Story 61. A backpack with our company logo on it. At one of my old jobs, we had completed a merger and acquisition, which essentially doubled our workload. I found myself putting in 2 to 3 extra hours every day. Instead of a sizable Christmas bonus and an end-of-year raise, we received a backpack. We were then told that bonuses were being eliminated and raises delayed until next year due to business needs. A month later, I and roughly 20% of our department had left for new jobs. An old coworker who stayed a few months longer said the company was hemorrhaging workers and couldn't understand why no one wanted to work there despite its prestige. I'm not a spiteful person, but I really have no love for that company. Story 62. I worked for a casino, a minimum of 50 hours a week for a year, and some weeks as many as 68, covering any shift I was asked to. Partly for the money, but also because I wanted to progress in the company. Middle management offered really good pay and perks, including free parking, travel allowance, gym membership, and free hotel accommodations and food. When traveling to other casinos they owned outside the UK. Our casino turned a £22 million profit, the highest in the UK that year for the company. They own about 20 casinos and a lot of betting shops. We were all expecting a very nice Christmas bonus, as we knew management received a percentage of the overall profit, and other casinos in the chain had announced bonuses of around £1 for every hour worked that year. I was expecting around £3,000. Instead, we were told to collect our bonuses from the security office after our shifts. Everyone received a bottle of cheap champagne, a bottle of white wine, like every year, and a small red envelope. I got home and opened the envelope, expecting either a check or a pay slip showing our bonus amount. Instead, it was a handwritten Christmas card signed by the 3 managers of our casino, personally thanking us for our hard work that year and saying they knew next year would be even better. On January 1st, 2 new Bentleys and a new Range Rover were parked in the manager's bays downstairs. I resigned a week later. Total value of our bonuses, £20 for champagne, £10 for wine, and 20 pence for the card. Total value of the manager's bonuses, who knows, but enough to buy £250,000 worth of cars between them.
There we go. All right.
Story 63. Not about the bonus itself, but what happened because of it. When I was 18, I worked at the local supermarket. One Christmas, we were called to the manager's office and given an envelope. I opened mine in the locker room before lunch. My colleague asked what I got, and I told her. I didn't think much of it and went on my break. Well, I was wrong. It turned out I got more than her, even though she had worked there longer. To be fair, she only worked 1 day a week. This caused a huge fuss, and they ended up giving her the same amount because she made a big deal. I learned never to talk about money with coworkers. Since then, I've had small arguments with friends when discussing wages. Story 64, I was the property master on a feature film that went 3 days over schedule. Instead of keeping our scheduled Christmas hiatus and rescheduling in January so we could spend the holidays with our families, the shooting crew was required to work 14-hour days on December 22nd, 23rd, and an afternoon-evening exterior shoot extending into the night of the 24th. Because, of course, time is money. When the star, an American A-lister, heard the plan, he said, "F this noise," ordered his Learjet to Vancouver to pick him up on the evening of the 20th, took a limo to the airport immediately at wrap, and went home. He didn't even pack. His assistant did it after he was in the air. He later shot his 4 remaining scenes on abbreviated, hastily constructed duplicate sets on a Burbank soundstage after New Year's Day. And what did the 165-person Canadian studio crew get as a Christmas bonus for giving up 3 family days during the scheduled Christmas hiatus, including Christmas Eve? When we finally wrapped after New Year's, we were given made-in-China souvenir keychains with the studio logo. 14 months later, the show's producer called to say he was bringing another feature to Vancouver and wanted me to be the property master. I told him, regretfully, that I couldn't, because I was having bowel surgery to remove the souvenir keychain he had metaphorically shoved up my A after the last show. I retired 2.5 years later without ever getting another call from that studio. Go figure. Story 65. I worked at Home Depot for 15 years. 25 years ago, we used to get a $50 Home Depot gift card every Christmas. Then it was reduced to $25, which lasted until Bob Nardelli became CEO. After that, all we got were 20% off coupons for purchases up to $100, but excluding many items. Eventually, even those disappeared. Funny thing, if you did the math, the company saved about $10 million that year. That same year, Bob Nardelli received a $10 million bonus for cutting costs. Probably a coincidence, but the timing was perfect. So, my worst Christmas bonus? Getting nothing so Scrooge McDelly could buy a new house. Story 66. Last year, I joined my current company from a competitor in April. They typically pay annual bonuses in February or March. Since I hadn't been there a full year, I did the math in my head to set a reasonable expectation.
Cool.
I knew I hadn't been involved in much of the release work, but I still contributed a lot. Bonuses generally range from $5,000 to $8,000, so I tempered my expectations to around $3,000, which coworkers confirmed was reasonable. At my previous company in 2021, I had been converted from a contractor to a full-time employee halfway through the year. Because I single-handedly delivered a project on time, my manager fought for me to get a substantial bonus of $11,000. I certainly wasn't expecting anything like that here. I had my annual review, and my manager told me I was rated meets, and that he was putting me as high as he could for bonus purposes. During the meeting about raise and bonus, he started with, "You know, we're not a revenue-generating department," and handed me a slip of paper. It listed my new salary, a $2,000 increase, and a measly bonus of $1,600. After taxes and retirement contributions, I probably didn't even get $1,000. It felt like a slap in the face. I told myself I'd see how this year went. If that was the high end, I didn't want to imagine the mid or low end. I work in banking tech, and right now everyone is being tight, so I'm lowering my expectations again. I've been an integral part of major work this year, so we'll see. Story 67. My company makes over $15 billion in profit every year. I have never received a Christmas bonus in over a decade. When they failed to keep up with market trends during COVID, they raised entry-level positions by about 12%. But my team still hasn't seen a raise to match the post-COVID market shift. Last year, they finally gave us a 5% bonus based on around 30 factors, all of which were entirely subjective. They also made it clear it wouldn't be added to our annual salary, meaning it could be taken away at any time. To top it off, they announced this generosity back in September and informed us it would be prorated for the last 4 months of the year. I laughed at my manager when he thought a 5% bonus meant anything. He asked why I wasn't taking it seriously, and I told him, "Dude, you owe me $20,000. I've been busting my ass for this greedy company, taking all the risk of COVID. Getting it twice from coming into the office and dealing with waves that hit many of us at once. 5% is hysterical." This company proved it could enable nearly the entire staff of over 600 to work from home, sorting out hardware and software limitations in a week. Yet it spent a ton of energy fighting employees on actually working from home, leveraged local government to classify our office jobs as essential, and made half of us come in for reasons only the CEO knows. I'm still waiting for that Scrooge McDuck at the top to be visited by some ghosts. But since I live in reality, I know nothing is changing. Story 68. I got a holiday card thanking me for my hard work and reminding me I had to work on Christmas. My mom started a new company, and in the first year, they asked her to make a list of 3 gifts in the $200 range each, and they would pick one. They got her all 3. Last year, they offered an all-expenses-paid 6-night trip to Las Vegas, allowing spouses to come. There were fancy dinners, shows, sightseeing, kayaking, ATV rides, and even a little money to gamble. They said this trip replaced the Christmas bonus, but they still gave the bonus when everyone returned. This year, they received an all-expenses-paid trip to Cancun in place of a regular bonus. No word on the bonus yet. It's just a small company with owners who truly believe that treating employees well makes them work harder. None of the owners are struggling. They're all very wealthy. So clearly, the money is there. Story 69. I had 2 really bad Christmas bonuses in the 5 years before I left my last job. My first year, my boss gave me a mug that said, "I hate everyone I work with," a stress ball, which I later found online at Walmart for 50 cents. A Rubik's Cube, hand sanitizer, and a pin art toy. I can't remember the second year. Year 3, I got a $100 drone, random name drawing. Year 4, an air fryer, also random drawing. Then the last year, a couple of people were laid off right before Christmas because the company wasn't doing well. Somehow, they decided our bonus would be a company-branded polo with a racing-type design. I worked in an office, but the owner also ran an RC shop. I left the polo in the gift bag in the office from December until I left the company in May. It was such an insulting and ugly bonus that I would have been happier if they had just bought us pizza. Story 70. A $15 coupon for Christmas dinner ingredients, but it could only be used at a few grocery stores and had to be either pork or turkey and vegetables. The first time I got it, I stood in line with my turkey, only to be told the coupon didn't work because I hadn't read the fine print about vegetables. I went back to pick some veggies, and when I returned to the register, the coupon still didn't work. Too embarrassed, I just paid on my card. The next year, it finally worked. but they had to call a manager to manually enter everything. She said they had issues with the coupon for nearly every customer who tried to use it. So, instead of the usual $25 gift card as a Christmas bonus, some higher-up thought this $15 coupon was better. This year, we got nothing.
I see.
Story 71. A. $25 DoorDash gift card either hadn't been activated or had already been used. They accused me of lying to get another one. I have a hard shell wallet that holds only 4 cards, and it was full, so I tried to redeem it immediately to avoid losing it. I hadn't even left the room when I showed them my DoorDash account, with 0 credit and no recent orders. They still said there was nothing they could do. I told the HR lady they should be embarrassed. In the second week of January, I received a letter stating I had been let go, signed by the same woman I had called out. She couldn't even retaliate to my face. I didn't win the settlement I tried to raise with the labor board. I was technically in violation of my contract for missing 4 out of my 3 sick days, which I had used all at once in July due to a bad flu, not COVID. They had initially said the 4th day was fine under the circumstances, but 5 months later, it was suddenly used to justify ending my contract. I often dream of blowing up their office with a bazooka. Story 72. I once got a canned ham with an Auto Parts logo on it. These hams were so bad that one lasted in the company White Elephant gift exchange for years, until the marketing director finally got stuck with it, and it became his doorstop for many years. But the worst was the year our new company president completely forgot about Christmas bonuses for our team, which were traditionally given out at the Christmas party. When our manager realized the bonuses had been forgotten, he disappeared for a while. As my wife and I were leaving, he returned and handed me a $20 bill. The company had a banner year, and I had just completed a project that saved the company $40,000 a month. I got $20. As I ranted on the way home, I realized that divided among our team, $20 each would add up to $300, the daily ATM withdrawal limit at the time. Our manager realized we had been completely forgotten and went to withdraw the daily maximum from his own account to make sure we got something. It was the worst bonus I ever received, but also a good one. I have that manager's job now, and I still have a lot of residual respect for him. Story 73. I worked for a GM division back in 1993. There had been a minor recession, and the last couple of years' Christmas bonuses had been canceled. That year, we had a solid guarantee. We were supposed to get $600 each. People spent money on Christmas presents expecting the bonus. A few days before Christmas, we got an update. No bonus. It was canceled again. Very sorry. Nothing could be done. There just wasn't money. This caused all sorts of problems in the office. Our regional manager, the big boss, went out and bought hams for each of us with his own money. Every desk got a $10 canned ham with a bow and a little card on the 23rd. There were about 50 of us, so it was a significant expense. Most people thought, what a great guy. A little later, since I had some company stock and knew how to read a financial report, I looked at the year-end report when it came out a month or two later. It turned out our regional manager had received a Christmas bonus himself based on our division's productivity. It was $40,000, and he spent a very small fraction of that on some hams. I probably should have kept my mouth shut about the whole thing, but I didn't. I thought I might get fired for stirring things up, but I wasn't. When I applied for a transfer to a different region, it went through without any problem. Anyway, that's probably an average corporate US story. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.